Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of Ask a Property Manager. This is episode number 96 and today is November 10th, 2021. We're coming to you from Studio 2.0 here at Own Buffalo. I'm Andrew Schultz, principal broker of Own Buffalo Inc. And on today's show, we're going to be taking a look at if you should furnish a student rental or not, some warranty of habitability issues. We're going to answer some questions from housing providers around the country and so much more. But before we jump into that, we are going to plug our social media. New episodes of Ask a Property Manager drop every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern. You can catch those on Facebook. You can also catch the replay the same day on YouTube. Don't forget about our Instagram. We post content there that doesn't make it to our other two platforms. And last but not least, don't forget about the Rent Prep for Landlords podcast. Current episode of the podcast is taking a look at how to prevent lease violations, the current state of the rental housing market across the country, when to list a tenant-occupied property for rent, and a couple of other things as well. Don't miss out on that. New episodes of the Rent Prep for Landlords podcast drop every other Thursday, anywhere podcasts are heard or over at rentprep.com/podcasts. We are going to go ahead and jump into our news of the day here. These are both stories with a little bit of a local flair to those here in the Buffalo region. Starting with this one out of the Buffalo News, Amherst's Zombie Hotel to become a luxury apartment complex under a new developer. This is a story that we've talked about a little bit in the past here, but it looks like they're finally starting to make a little bit of headway. Amherst's infamous Zombie Hotel is about to be brought back to life. The New York City-based real estate developer that just completed and opened its Auden Buffalo student housing project is now turning its attention to the partially completed hotel building that has sat dormant on Sweet Home Road for more than 4 years. But now it's going to become a new luxury apartment building near the University at Buffalo's North Campus, instead of either another hotel or another residential project for college students. DMG Investments LLC is planning to complete the construction project that was started by a pair of brothers from Ontario while converting it into 154 high-end apartments instead of guest rooms. The luxury complex will feature a mixture of studio, 1- and 2-bedroom units with what DMG describes as a full range of elite amenities. Now dubbed Air Buffalo, it will focus on health and lifestyle with an oversized indoor pool, private parking, bicycle parking, a residence lounge, a private garden, a full-time doorman, and a fitness facility that will include Peloton bikes, a mirror interactive smart gym, tonal machines, and Theragun percussive massage therapy tools. It's also the first in a new line of conventional and high-end housing properties that DMG is launching, alongside its current student housing portfolio. We wanted to launch this brand and it felt like it was a great location for this, said David Timmerman, a senior vice president of asset management at DMG. In working in that market, it's up and coming. The university community is right there, and we've come to like that area and felt this would be a great location for such a residential facility. The investment company's Amherst Sweet Home Road Property LLC on Thursday completed its $5.7 million purchase of the 6-story building shell, which is located at 1265 Sweet Home. The 2.33-acre property had been owned by Sam and Josh Joel, Sweet Home Hotels of Brampton, Ontario, who originally planned to create a Hyatt Summerfield Suites in 2006 after they bought the land. They were forced to suspend work in 2017 after losing their financing. As a result, the building sat incomplete with walls, windows, and floors on a fenced-in construction lot. The site has been under contract to DMG for months. With the completed purchase of the 88,000 square foot structure, DMG now plans to restart work on the $21.3 million project with a goal of completing and opening the complex in summer 2022. The company already received $3.5 million in tax breaks from the Amherst IDA. We're very excited to have closed on the purchase of this fantastic property. DMG CEO Jackie He said in a press release, "It was a natural extension for us after our successful development of Auden Buffalo. We love the community and want to further contribute." Under plans previously submitted to the town of Amherst for what was then called Sweet Home Flats, DMG will convert the shell into 130 apartments with luxury finishes, while tacking on a new 6-story annex on one side to add another 17,000 square foot of space and 24 units. The design by Kidney Architects and Trado Engineers would include 44 efficiency or studios, 87 one-bedroom units, and 23 two-bedroom units. Rents will start at $1,239, $1,284, and $1,858 per month, respectively. That's a big jump from the one beds to the two beds. DMG launched its new website for the project at the start of the month, and it's already getting interest and inquiries, Timmerman said. The response has been great even over the past few days. DMG, whose office is located on Wall Street in Manhattan, was formed in 2013 and is a subsidiary of Do Think Holding Group, one of the largest residential real estate development firms in China, with more than 60 projects covering over 100 million square feet. Focuses on buying, developing, and managing real estate and is centered around student and luxury multifamily housing, including condos. It previously developed 3 major high-end residential projects, one in Houston, one in Milwaukee, and one in Manhattan. It also sold the first 2. It already sold the first 2, but still owns and manages 1 park. Its biggest focus of late has been its Auden Living student housing portfolio with communities in Albany, Ithaca, Houston, South Carolina, and most recently Buffalo, with 2 additional projects planned for Albany and Ithaca. The Buffalo project, located at 2915 North Forest, is just north of UB. It features 154 apartments with 481 beds and opened in late August. It is now 85% occupied. So you can kind of get a feel for what they're looking to do here with some of the photos and things like that. I believe this is the current, this is the North Forest Road complex that they already have open. But you can see that there's at least some construction going on. That's one of those properties that has been sitting there vacant for 4 years. It's been a long time since anything has really happened at that property. There were a lot of liens that were filed due to unpaid bills for equipment and for construction work that was done and stuff like that. I am glad to see that that property has finally changed hands and will be being worked on again. It's right next to University of Buffalo North Campus, which if you're not from the Buffalo region, it's one of our major universities. It's one of the state university schools, and it's the largest in our region. And I want to say the resident population at UB is something like 12 or 15,000 students. And that doesn't even count the students that live right off campus in the surrounding apartment buildings and things like that, which basically this is on the footstep of UB. With it being luxury, it might not be more geared towards students, but I think that you will have a lot of people that have a lot of interest in that area. It's quickly becoming a desirable area, not just for students, but for other people that are kind of past that student age, but still want the conveniences of all of the walkability. Our next article, also from the Buffalo News. This one has a local flair, but it certainly applies, the knowledge certainly applies nationwide. Tenant and kids living without heat or hot water after 40 phone calls to landlord. Brianna Bryant and her 3 children, aged 6 and younger, had been without heat or hot water for 7 days in their 416 Wohlers Ave apartment. She said she made 40 calls to the landlord, but no action has been taken to rectify the situation. Her $750 rent has been paid through the Emergency Rental Assistance Program for June 21 through October 21, but the landlord has continued to demand an additional $65 per month for utilities from her, she said. Basically, he's just not fixing anything, she said during a press conference Friday, organized by Push Buffalo. Push Buffalo provided a copy of the city inspection report dated Friday of the fully occupied 4-unit dwelling. City Inspector Joe Sacco deemed the structure unfit for human occupancy in the report because the building required structural repairs and was occupied without verifying the work. Smoke and carbon monoxide alarms at all 4 apartments and common halls were missing. Furnaces, hot water tanks, and electrical panels are not properly installed, and there is an insect and/or rodent infestation. Due to the above violations, this building should not be occupied. You must provide suitable housing for all tenants at this property, the report said. The document names Roxana Pervin of West Babylon as the owner, but ERAP pays the rent to a property manager at Honesty Property Management and Multi-Services, said Megan Zickel, a tenant advocate at Push Buffalo. The property manager was supposed to provide accommodations to move Bryant by Friday, but offered a worse place in Niagara Falls, which is not feasible because the children attend Buffalo Public Schools, Zickel said. A spokesman for the city of Buffalo said that the heat and hot water were turned back on late Friday after the Push Buffalo press conference. The advocacy group said that they hope to call attention to the ways in which landlords are taking advantage of the public dollars being distributed through ERAP to help cover rent during the pandemic. What's happening in this house is absolutely wrong. It's deplorable and it's unacceptable, said Harper Bishop, Deputy Director of Movement Building for Push. Everyone has the right to sustainable, affordable, quality housing in our community. That should be the floor, not the ceiling. In the middle of a global pandemic, that anyone would find it acceptable to leave these individuals without hot water and heat for 7 days is absolutely inhumane, wrong. And Push Buffalo and our allies are out here today to say we see you and we're going to hold you accountable. If you're taking public dollars through the ERAP program, you're not doing the right thing by your tenants, we see you and we're going to hold you accountable. We need greater scrutiny from public officials, from the city of Buffalo, and from our elected officials in totality around what it looks like when we give public dollars to individuals. Brian said she's looking for other places to live, but rents are high. I'm working 40 hours a week. I'm making $17.50 an hour, paying rent, lights, gas, clothing, food. It's going to take me time to build up a security deposit and then first month's rent. So it's kind of hard for me because I'm a single parent. I'm not receiving public assistance. I'm not getting food stamps. So I'm not going to delve too much into the he said, she said of this, because I feel like there's information that's not in this article. Obviously, there's no comment from either the property management company or from the landlord in this article. So it's a little bit on the one-sided way of looking at things. We don't know if there were any attempts that were made by the landlord to get someone out there to correct these issues, or if there was communication back and forth. Doesn't sound like it if there were over 40 calls, but no action was taken. Really what it boils down to is somebody does have to answer the question is, what happened here? Like, I understand that you might not be able to get your heating guy out or your plumbing guy out the exact same day, but within a week, I think, is a pretty reasonable response time, especially when you're talking about a 4-unit building. And it sounds like there might have been just one heating unit for the entire building by the sounds of how this article is written. But really what this whole thing boils down to is even when tenants are not paying their rent during the pandemic, I understand that there are a lot of tenants who are struggling. I understand that there are a lot of funds out there that are available for landlords to apply for, but it's a slow process to get those funds. You do still have a responsibility as a landlord to uphold and maintain the warranty of habitability on that apartment. And that's one thing that a lot of landlords are struggling with from not having access to funds because rents haven't come in and it's taking so long to access emergency funds. When it's months long that you're waiting for these funds to come through, it does create an issue where there might not be immediate funds availability to fix something major like a repair such as this. It's an unfortunate situation. It's an unfortunate situation that we find ourselves in both on the landlord and on the tenant side. And I think everyone is just trying to do the best that they possibly can in the situation for the most part. There are definitely landlords that are taking advantage of the situation by not doing any repairs. There are also tenants that are taking advantage of the situation by delaying their applications or not applying at all or whatever the case may be. You know, I think it does go both ways. In this particular instance, it sounds to me like the landlord needs to step it up a little bit. I think there is information missing from this article, but really my entire point in covering this was just to reiterate the fact that you do have responsibilities as a landlord, even when things aren't necessarily going your way. Let's take a look at a couple of funny images. I wanted to highlight this from kind of highlighting what we talked about last week with Zillow exiting the home buying and flipping game. I figured we would share a couple of funny images tied to that because personally I think it's hilarious. It makes me a little bit happy that Zillow's decided that their protocol doesn't work, their algorithm doesn't work, and they can't make money home flipping, which should make each and every one of you question anytime you look at Zestimates on their website and think that their Zestimate is right. Look, Zillow's a multi-billion-dollar-a-year company, and they couldn't even figure out how to make home flipping work using their Zestimate algorithm. How accurate do you truly think it is when it comes to your home? So that's something to keep in mind. We're going to go ahead and jump into our questions from housing providers around the country, starting with this one on seller withholding the security deposit. I've got a new one. I'm buying a duplex with 1 unit occupied. The original lease states that the current owner collected a security deposit. He snuck something into the purchase contract when we were going back and forth stating no security deposit left due to previous damages. So I'm not expecting anything from the deposit to transfer over to us at closing, but I wondered what I should ask for to make sure that the tenant has acknowledged this and won't be expecting anything from us as the new owners when she eventually does move out. I've heard of an estoppel, but never used one. Is that the move here or something in writing between the current owner and the tenant? So the first thing I would do would be ask the seller for the proof of damages as well as proof that the tenant's been notified that their security deposit has been applied to those damages. This sounds to me like the seller is trying to walk away with the tenant's security deposit, and they very well may be, but before we call somebody out on the floor, we need to ask the question, did you notify the tenant that you were taking their deposit due to damages? And that is really the question. Is the tenant aware of it? If nothing else, asking this question is going to save you a problematic conversation with the tenant after you take ownership of the property or when they go to move or whatever the case may be. It's best to get this ironed out prior to closing on the property. I recommend speaking to your attorney on this to see if you have any other options available to you, such as the estoppel agreement. This is an excellent place to use an estoppel agreement. Essentially, what the estoppel agreement is going to do is state that the tenant is certifying certain facts on behalf of the current landlord, the seller of the property. And you can have the tenant certify whatever facts you want to in that estoppel. What their rent is, how much their security deposit is, how much of their deposit is remaining, who the occupants of the unit are, et cetera, et cetera. Getting it on that estoppel certificate is basically the tenant certifying that the property owner is providing you with accurate information as part of the closing. So that would be my recommendation, is talk to your attorney, maybe work on getting that estoppel certificate squared away. But definitely, if you do nothing else, talk to the property owner and make sure that that tenant has been notified that their deposit is no longer available, that their deposit has been applied to damages. That's something you're going to want to talk to that seller about, and make sure that you get this ironed out before you move forward with your closing. On to our next question on furnishing a student rental. I have a house that I'll be marketing to college students. It's move-in ready, but I'm wondering if I should put some cheap furniture in it, not necessarily fully furnish it, but would it add any value? I don't think I'll have any trouble renting it, just remembering what a pain it was searching all over for furniture for my own college students. So I'm going to say that this is probably going to be both market and price dependent. When we managed rentals by one of the local college campuses, actually it was UB South Campus, we talked about North Campus in one of our news stories today. We managed a bunch of rentals by UB South Campus, and it was about 50-50 whether the students wanted their rental furnished or not. I will say that our international students that were coming over on student visas, they pretty much always wanted it furnished because it was just that much less that they had to deal with when they came over. But our local or even just general stateside students, the students who might have traveled from, say, Long Island or out of state or even lived locally but decided to rent an apartment from us, I would say that those students, it was probably like 25% wanted things furnished. Most of them wanted to bring their stuff in from home. So for that reason, I would say it really depends on your market, and it really depends on your price point. And the reason I say price point is because we also have, by UB North Campus, kind of again talking the same of that news article, right next to that building that just changed hands near UB North. To the south of that, there's a brand new student housing complex, and like right across the street from that, again, there's another brand new student housing apartment complex. And those are top tier. I mean, they are fully amenitied. We're talking, pools and tennis courts and gyms and everything else, which obviously if you're renting a duplex, you're not going to be competing with somebody on that level. So it really depends on what your price point is and what your market looks like as to whether or not it's really necessary to furnish a student rental. The one thing I will mention here is that if you do opt to furnish a student rental, anticipate damages. You're going to have things that get broken or damaged or whatever the case may be. Anticipate that that's going to happen as part of your rental. Factor it into your security deposit and your rent or whatever the case may be. Anticipate that you're going to have some damages. Anticipate that it's going to be gross when you get it back. It's probably not going to be cleaned and taken care of the same way that you would take care of it. And if you're providing furniture in the form of like soft furniture, beds and couches and chairs and things like that, I strongly recommend a fumigation between tenants just to make sure that you're not carrying a bug issue from one set of tenants into another set of tenants. It'll make your life a lot easier if you take care of that between tenants rather than discovering it once your new set of tenants has moved in. On to our third and final question, enforcing a visitation policy. I have a tenant who has several visitors. We are going to have a new security camera system installed soon that will have facial recognition technology that will allow us to tally the number of visitors. This is totally legal in my state of Alaska. What about making a limit to the amount of guests a tenant can host per month? Please don't do this. Like, first of all, it's highly invasive to count your tenants' guests and their comings and goings, or even counting when your tenants come and go. It really isn't your business who your tenants have over, as long as they're not destroying the place or violating your lease or whatever the case may be. If you legitimately suspect that there are drug deals going on or that something illegal is going on, then yeah, it makes sense to put a camera in at that point to watch the doors, see if there's excessive traffic in and out of the building. At that point, it might not be a bad idea. But what you're talking about is essentially telling your tenants that you're limited to having 2 people per day, no more. I'm not even 100% certain that that would be illegal, because I think that it violates the tenant's right to quiet enjoyment of the residence. So yeah, I mean, don't do this. Like, if you suspect drugs or something illegal is going on in the unit, be in contact with your local police department. Let them know what's going on. See if maybe they know anything about the situation, because again, they may be able to help you out or something like that. But realistically speaking, it sounds like you're just trying to catch overnight guests who should be listed on as residents on a lease. I suppose this would be an option, but this just really seems like a bridge too far, in my opinion. You also have to consider that there are state and local laws with regards to audio and video recording, especially where and when you can and cannot record and how that information can be used. So you're going to want to look into that as well. But realistically speaking, this sounds to me like a bridge too far. Facial recognition technology to track when people are coming and going into your property. This feels like a little bit too much for me. My recommendation would be try to relax it a little bit. I think that you're setting yourself up to have more headaches, and I think that your tenants are not going to appreciate this situation if you start monitoring when they're coming and going and when their guests are coming and going. I think that this is going to turn into more headaches for you than what you're really anticipating. So that pretty much wraps things up for this week's episode of Ask a Property Manager. Thank you all so much for watching. We love producing Ask a Property Manager, and you can help us to improve by dropping a question in the comments, either on Facebook or on YouTube, and your question may be picked up and answered in an upcoming episode. If you enjoyed this content, or if I brought some value to your day, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. YouTube and Facebook both push videos based on community feedback, so every like, comment, subscribe, and share helps us to grow and reach more people. We'll be back next week on Wednesday, November 17th at 10 a.m. Eastern with another show you won't want to miss. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.